Hi there. So in this video, we're going to look at the multiplication and division of rational expressions. So whenever you're multiplying rational expressions, you multiply straight across, but recognize that anything in the denominator cannot equal 0. And it can also oftentimes be very helpful to simplify rational expressions before you multiply them together. So remember, you can simplify a top with a bottom, whether it's directly underneath it or diagonal. Okay, you just can never cross out side by side. Okay, so some steps for multiplying rational expressions: you can factor your numerator and denominator if needed. Divide out any common factors, and again, you have to cancel out a top with a bottom, never side by side. And then you're going to rewrite your final answer as a single fraction. You can leave it in factored form. All right. Down here below in example 1, I'm going to do 3 of these here with you. I'm going to actually do A, D, and E with you. All right, so in letter A, you've got a lot of information going on here, but there's nothing that can be factored. We can just go straight away to canceling. So let's start with our numbers first. So like, for example, we could do the 10 and 15, for example. We could even do 10 with 35, okay, because it's a top and a bottom. But maybe if I stick with the 10 and 15, the 5 will go into both of those. So let's divide them both by 5. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Maybe let's look at our 35 and 21. Let's see, 7 will go into both of those. So 21 divided by 7 is 3. 35 divided by 7 is 5. I can still do one more canceling. The 3 on top and bottom, they're the same, so they can both be reduced. Divide them both by 3, and you're left with ones. So I'm just going to go ahead now clean up. So this is negative 5 times 1, so that gives me negative 5. And then on the bottom I have 2 times 1, so that gives me 2. And then I could have, I think I think I'll find it easier. I'm going to go ahead and just multiply my letters up top and then reduce in the next step. So when you multiply, remember, you add your exponents. So this will become x squared y to the 9th up top. And then on the bottom, I have x to the 7 plus 1, so 7x to the 8, and y to the 3rd. Now let's do one last cleanup here. So I'm going to keep my negative 5 over 2. Where do I have the most x's? On the bottom. How many more? 8 take away 2, so 6 more. Where do you have the most y's? Up top. How many more? 9 take away 3, 6. Final answer. Okay. All right, let's move on down to letter D. All right, in letter D, we've got a lot of factoring that can be done. So I'm going to take it the top up here, that 8x squared minus 4x, they both have, remember, you pull out highest number and least letters that they have in common. So 4 will go into both of those, and I can also pull out an x. Write what I have left over, so that'd be 2x minus 1. I'll go ahead and stick with this bottom. The bottom, that doesn't have a common factor, but then since it's a 2 term, you ask yourself, is it a difference of squares? Can you take those square roots? So can I take the square root of 4x squared? Yep. Can I take square root of 1? Yes. Is there a minus sign in between? Yes. So since all 3 of those conditions are met, let's go ahead and do that. And this will be factor as a difference of squares. The square root of 4x squared, 2x and 2x, square root of 1, 1 and 1, and the signs on these, a plus and a minus. Okay. All right, so we'll come over here. That top numerator now is a trinomial, so we can start with our guess and check because there's not a common factor up there. The only way to multiply to give you 3x squared, 3x times x. Most common way to multiply to give you 1. Well, I should say the only way to multiply to give you 1 as well is 1 and 1. All right, so now on the outside I have kind of write it up here. On the outside I've got 3x. On the inside I've got 1x. My goal is a positive 2x, so I'm going to have to make that 1 negative. So just figure out, okay, well, which one? Remember, I want the one where I'm just getting 1. Here on the outside, that's where I'm getting 3. 3 needs to be positive, so I'm going to plus sign there. The inside here, this is where I'm getting that 1, so that's where the minus sign is going to go. On the bottom, that 6x plus 6, that's a 2 term. It has something in common. Agree and pull out a 6. Write what I have left over, x plus 1. Now let's go through and cancel out any factors that they have in common. So remember, you can cancel out top to bottom, but never side by side. So let's see, in the first rational piece, I have a 2x minus 1s that can cancel out. In the second one, I've got x plus 1s that can cancel out. Lastly, you'll notice that I have a 6 on the bottom and a 4 on the top. Those can be reduced. So I can divide them both by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then I don't have anything else left in common, so I'm just going to write what I have left over. So up top I've got 2x times the 3x minus 1. And on the bottom I've got 3 times the 2x plus 1. Like I said, I'm just going to leave that in factored form. Nothing left in common. Remember, it's not legal to cancel out these ones because they're attached with addition and subtraction signs. So that is our final answer there. Okay, let's come on down to letter E. Letter E, the left-hand rational expression cannot be reduced any further or factored, so I'm going to just write it down. On the bottom, I'm going to tackle the bottom first, okay? And the bottom, this is a difference of squares, right? Because I can take the square root of a squared and the square root of 16, and there's a minus sign, so let's do that. So here then I'd have a and a, square root of 16, 4 and 4, plus and a minus. Now, notice how up top you've got 4 minus a, and so the only difference between this 4 minus a and this a minus 4 are your signs, right? Because here your a is negative, there it's positive. Here your 4 is positive, there it's negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor out a negative 1. So if I factor out a negative 1, then that's going to leave me then with negative 4 plus a. Then by doing that, change my color here. That way then, you've got negative 4 plus a. Here, the 4 is negative, the a is positive. Here, the 4 is negative, the a is positive. That's the same term, so that can be canceled out. I can also cancel out this a plus 4 for that a plus 4. And so then the only thing I have left is a negative 1 up top and that a plus 2 on the bottom. It's the final answer. Okay, so just always be on the lookout for that technique that I just showed you there of factoring out that negative 1. Perhaps sometimes that can help us in terms of canceling out like it did here, okay? Because the only difference between that top and that bottom there were just a negative 1 sign. So you can factor out a negative 1 so that you are able to cancel it out. All right, definitely pause it and try those remaining 3 there. All right, let's flip it over then. Let's look at division. With division, you essentially do the exact same thing. You are going to factor and all that good stuff, but the only thing that's different, because it's division, if you remember, whenever you divide fractions, you copy the first fraction, change it to multiplication, and then you flip the second fraction. And then from there, all of the steps are the same because you're turning it then into a multiplication problem. So with that said, then I'm only going to do one of these here with you, okay? So I'm going to come down and I'm going to do letter B with you. So looking at letter B, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, change, flip. So copy the first fraction, change it to multiplication, and then we flip the second fraction. All right. Now let's do our now this turns into the exact same kind of problems that we were doing on the previous page. So got my negative 14x on the bottom there. Those 2 terms have a 7 in common. Factor out that 7, write what I have left over. Come over to the right at the top. They don't have a common factor, so it's a trinomial. So let's go guess and check. The only way to multiply to give you 2x squared. 2x times x. All right, now we've got 2 ways to multiply to give us 6. We've got 6 and 1 and 3 times 2. Now think about it, you want to get a 13. So if we use 6 and 1, that's probably going to be a better option, because remember, if you put the 6 in the back here, it's going to get multiplied times 2, and that's going to give you 12. All right, so I'm going to put a 1 there. So now outside I have 12x, inside I've got 1x. My goal is a negative 13x. I can get that. I'd have to make them both negative, so minus, minus. And then on the bottom, I have x minus 1. Right, so now let's do any canceling that we can. So let's see, I've got this x minus 6. Those can go. The 7 and 14. Divide by 7 is 1. Divide by 7 is 2. And that's all we're going to be able to do. So let's write what we have left over then. Up top, I've got a negative 2x times the 2x minus 1. And then on the bottom, I just have x minus 1. Final answer there. Okay, so again, you really are doing the same thing back here, just you'd have to do that first initial step of copy, change, flip, and then it's the exact same process. Okay, all right, I'll let you wrap this up on your own. Thanks a lot. Bye.